Hi, everyone. My name is Chris, and I'm the founder of Portage, a strategy design platform that enables organizations to develop more resilient strategies. Today, I wanted to show you developing an end-to-end strategy using the strategy boards in Portage. Now, I've already pre-built everything, so we're just going to walk through this really quickly, as I just wanted to give you a quick overview. So let's zoom in here to the beginning. And what sets everything off is the strategic profile. Now, it's important to take some time and develop a really good strategic profile because this information, as I said, drives most of the advice and the recommendations that the AI is going to make throughout this entire process. Now, you can see in my profile, I'm a fictional aged care provider, in which I've included the strategic goals, the current challenges, the current internal factors, the external factors that are affecting things, any current initiatives, future initiatives, and cultural factors. All of those together form up the profile for Galaxy Care. Now, let's just move on to the next step in the process, where we can generate some focus questions. So I can just click generate here, and you can see how it quickly comes up with focus questions that it has developed based on the strategic profile, or you can add your own focus question in here. So for example, if we're looking for technology disruption, it will then generate different focus questions that are focused on that initial question. But I've already selected one, so let's just move on. So this is my focus question: what innovative approaches can Galaxy Care adopt to streamline regulatory compliance and reduce the reporting burden while maintaining high standards of care? So I know, for example, this is a really important question that lots of aged care and disability care providers are faced with today. So let's have a quick look at the next step, which is doing a trend landscape search. So what we want to do is, in our strategic analysis process, is we want to bring in information from outside the organization. So while that strategic profile that we saw at the beginning of the process includes a lot of information, it's very inwards focused, and it may not actually have any new or emerging information that could exist elsewhere. And so that's why we want to do trend landscape search. So within Portage, a trend landscape is a report that's created based on what's actually happening in the market. So we're going to have a look here that there's some trends around creating innovation hubs and regulatory sandboxes. We can click the link here to get the sources for that trend information. So we've got two articles here, which is an interesting idea. So providing a way to perhaps relieve the burden of the regulatory compliance by providing innovation in that area. And then we can also see there's another trend around evolving regulatory framework. So again, we can have a look at the source of those. And we could pick off any others of the trends that we found here, but we're just going to go with those two because they look interesting and they look applicable to our problem. We can then move on to the next step. So what we want to do is to really thoroughly test what could happen with those trends and also what could happen with the organization. It's not just enough to just respond directly to some of the issues. As we're finding in the world today, things are so dynamic and things are changing so quickly, it seems, that by using things like scenarios, we can actually pre-work through some potential outcomes that could happen in the future. And that's what lets us build more resilient and reliable strategies. And so in this example, I've chosen the 2x2 scenario approach. And in that approach, you select two of your key uncertainties. So these are things that you think are going to impact your organization the most, and you put those on a 2x2 matrix, and you take the high and low of each of those uncertainties to then generate your scenarios. And so in this example, I've chosen regulatory changes. As we've mentioned, that was our key focus question. And the other thing that we've got here is workforce stability. So our ability to recruit and retain qualified professionals. And I've already pre-generated the 4 scenarios, and so you can see here turbulent transitions is in the quadrant of high workforce stability and high regulatory changes. Stable shifts is in the high regulatory changes, low workforce stability. Regulatory relief is low workforce stability and low regulatory changes, and workforce woes is high workforce, low regulatory. And you can then generate different nodes for each of those scenarios. And what is happening in the scenario node is a narrative story. So this is a day in the life of, in the year 2035, somebody working at Galaxy Care. What's their life look like? How have things changed? What are they doing? What are the challenges that they face in that world? And the reason why we use stories and we use a narrative structure is it's a lot easier for stakeholders to understand. We're not throwing a bunch of really complex issues or complex situations at them. It's just a nice way for them to put themselves in that future and then think backwards about what might need to change in order to be successful or to thrive in that future. And so we've got our 4 scenarios. So let me just zoom out. You can see we've got the 4 scenarios there. And we then bring those scenarios into an impact assessment. And you can see each scenario here is represented, and we've got a couple of impacts from each scenario. And what Portage has done is it's looked at that organizational profile. It's then looked at the scenarios and said, well, what could be potential strategic impacts in each of those situations? Now, what we've also done here is created a number of courses of action. And what courses of action are potential strategic responses to some of those impacts. And I've already selected a few of them there, you can see. So let's just go have a quick look at the scenario or the courses of action. And what courses of action are a bit more detailed explanation of how you might respond to that strategic impact. And so we've got some objectives, we've got some steps to follow, some risks, the resources that are required, and any assumptions that were made in developing that course of action. And we've got 3 courses of action here, which are strategic responses to the impacts that were identified from the scenarios. And the next step we want to have a look at is a bit of a stress test. We want to test those courses of action, which are here, across the scenarios to see how well does the AI think those courses of action would perform. And we can see for the scenario stable shifts that streamlining compliance is scoring pretty well. We can click on the score and we can get more detail on the analysis. So let's have a look at investing in compliance and technology in workforce woes. That's not scoring very well. And the AI will tell you how it thinks you can improve the score. So by focusing on technologies that also enhance staff satisfaction and retention. And so what we could do is go back to this streamline or invest in compliance technology. We go down here. We can then adjust the objectives, the steps, and the resources to make sure that we're addressing some of the issues that the AI has indicated here. And we can then rerun that stress test to try to increase the score. And what we want to do is try to have our courses of action score relatively high, so in over 70 or over 75 across as many scenarios as possible. So we can see here, for example, that the staff training program is scoring well in all scenarios. So if we had to do some prioritization of these courses of action, that's a sure hit because it's going to work in all circumstances. Now, to get to a strategy, it's not enough to just list out our initiatives. It has to have a bit of logic to it, a bit of coherence, and it's got to make some sense. And so we've got a robust strategy node, which helps take those rough ideas from the courses of action and start developing them into a coherent strategy. Now, this node is using the strategic choice framework. This is based on Roger L. Martin and AJ Lafley's Where to Play and How to Win framework. And you can see here, I've already pre-filled these things, but it will generate them for you. You can adjust them as required, but we've created our vision statement. We've got our key success metrics from a high level. We can then dive into different sections within the strategic framework. So what's our market segments that we're looking at? So for example, in home care, the families and healthcare professionals, those are our markets. You can see we're defining other things related to that. It goes through a justification as to why are we making those choices. We then go into how we think we're going to win, what's our competitive advantage, what's our unique value proposition, what's a differentiation strategy, and most importantly, what won't we do? So for this example, we're not going to do generic care, we're going to do highly specialized care. It then goes through what are our must-have capabilities that we need to have in place in order to support our how to win and where to play choices. We've then got the gaps that we've identified between what we're saying we need and what we have. And then we've also got our management systems, which are our processes and systems for implementation, our metrics, and how we're going to manage risks. And so that can all be generated quite quickly. And then we need to communicate it. And so we can go over to the content generation node. I've already pre-generated this one as just a short memo because at this stage, I'm just drafting this to get feedback from my stakeholders. And you can see here, it's a nice memo, pretty easy to read. It's collating all of that information from the robust strategy node. So quite quickly, you can see that I've got a nice end-to-end strategy. It's all grounded in research from our trends. We've used scenarios to test different variations or different possibilities of the future. We've then stress tested those courses of action that were generated from the impact analysis. We've then put it through a strategy framework to bring all those ideas together into a coherent and logical structure. And then we've then generated the content that will help us communicate it to our stakeholders. So I hope you can see from this quick run through how quickly you can generate really great strategies, really great responses to potential futures, and increase the availability and the pace of insights to help you build more resilient organizations. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.